All right, today we're going to talk about 3D sketching. And 3D sketching is a little bit different than 2D sketching, considering it's in 3 dimensions. But even starting off by going under Sketch and then 3D Sketch, it starts off different. You don't actually select a plane to do your sketching on. It actually does it in kind of all three. So if we start at the origin, which I always recommend, or starting at a constrained point, we can start by just drawing. You notice how it starts right underneath the pencil icon. It says we're in the XY. We're in the XY plane. So really quick, I'm just going to do that. And now it says if we rotate, we're in the YZ. But actually, in this case, I'm going to make it like a replacing some pipe on or tubing on the car. So I want it to come back on what is the YZ plane, back down just like that. So now we have this kind of looks like it's in line, it is, but we can rotate it in 3 dimensions and kind of bring it back, and we can do a whole lot of stuff with it. What we want to do actually is start off with some general constraints, if you will. This is a center line, and we're just gonna let it come on just this X, and we can actually select it, and we can select that, and we can do it along the X. And there's a whole lot of relations. These are going to be really helpful. Really quick, I'm just going to make it 7 inches as well, um, just along the X. So right there, we have a straight line to reference off of. So if you're doing this for tubing, you might already have tubing on the car that you can reference the middle of a sketch to. But what we're going to do is we are going to bring this point, and we're going to bring it pretty close there, actually. So let's say we have a pipe that comes in and it's like 2 inches over. So notice how that's 2 inches in the Z direction. We're gonna go to Smart Dimension. And notice how there isn't any other options under Smart Dimension. Select Smart Dimension, and we're gonna go like this. And you might think that's fine, but that's like not a XYZ distance. That's like a combination distance. If we hit Tab, or this one looks like it's fine. But we'll see in just a few seconds when it might not be. We know it's going to be 2 inches just like that, right? So just like that, it's 2 inches. And but notice it gets all janky. Once again, I'm going to actually measure that like I should have the first time. However, now that we have that, it has to be 2 inches from this line at all times, right? But all of this is still super um, just available and not constrained. So it always helps me to go back into different views. Like for example, this one, or actually one that is named. It's like isometric. Isometric is generally helpful. Go into isometric, and then since we know we're at in the frame, we can rotate and go from there. So I actually want to make these two and these two. I want to make them both along the Z. And so the Z, we get our reference axis down here and make them along the Z. So we hit check, and if you notice, it can't really move anymore. This middle part can, but since these are both along the Z, it draws a line between them on the Z axis and keeps it there. And we know that's 2 inches because we've set it to be 2 inches. Now comes the interesting part, angles. So let's say I need to know the angle between these two, and it needs to be 135 degrees. We hit the check mark, and so now we have this interesting thing. It can kind of bend and rotate and a whole bunch of other stuff. Once again, it's still 2 inches away, but we need some more constraints to make sure this is where we want it to be. So if this is where it's at, and this is where it's at, or those are the two constraining points, we can create a smart dimension. And so let's say we want this to be a certain distance away from here. Notice how all we get is a length there. And while that might be helpful in some applications, we want the z distance from here to here. What we can actually do is tab. If we hit tab, it cycles. SolidWorks cycles between the different dimensions. So we know we don't want that one. We cycle again. That's how tall it is. One more time, and we get this z dimension. We select it. We want one. And just like that, we have that dimension. But interestingly enough, we can still move it, though it is in just the one plane. Notice how the the box it's creating, the little yellow outlined box, is now um, not a box, it's just a rectangle. By box, I mean a 3D box. So once again, we can do some more stuff, right? We can do another dimension between these two, and this will be a final dimension. Let's say we want it 35 degrees. Just like that, we have this piece where the middle is 1 inch away from the origin on the Z. We have the end that's 2 inches away from the origin on the Z-axis. We have a pipe, essentially, or tubing angle of 135 between the two. And then finally, the initial launch angle of this is 35 degrees from the Z-axis. Sorry, I apologize. That is the X-axis. So now that we have that, we can exit the sketch. And now what do you do with it? So in programs like BenTech, you can simply import this file, and it tells you how to create the tube bend. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to go back into the sketch and add a fillet. We just select that point. If you zoom in, creates the fillet. Say we want 1/2 inch. And just like that, hit the check mark, and we get out of the sketch. And now we have a little rounded. And you can still do a lot of stuff with these 3D sketches. So for example, swept, that can actually be a 3D sweep. So you can sketch profile, you have the profile, you also have the path. So obviously for this, you'd select the path. Really quick, I'm actually going to try to create something. And as you can see, there's no planes on here. So really quick, I'm going to unhide one. Yep, just like that. And starting at the origin, because that's always the easiest, dimension it to be, say, 0.25 or 0.5 is fine. Just like that. So as you can see, this is starting out at the origin, and we're going to have it try to follow this path. So if we go to sweep, that is the automatically selected profile. We select this, and just like that, we have this little pipe that is now in 3D. And you can do a whole bunch of stuff with this. For example, edit the feature, start in tangency. We can make it path tangent and path tangent. I don't know if that'll do anything. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can't do with it. I think that did change something. I could be wrong though. I don't think it did anything. Well, anyways, you can activate mesh preview and you can increase it. So this is what it does over that corner. And because SolidWorks is a parametric software, you can actually go back in, edit sketch, and instead of a radius of 1/2 inch, we can go to a radius of 1 inch. And then at the end here, we can actually add stuff still, right? We can bring this back up. We can more dimensioning, 120. And then we also want to in the CSS, it's going to come back up. These little yellow circles tell you where the profile is going to go. And let's just create a distance between those two. That's 2, just like that, 0.8. Now we have a fully defined sketch once again. And I'm going to add another fillet there. Good check. Get back out of the sketch. Now, as you can see, the pipe is back. And obviously with these sketch profiles, you can make it like an actual tube. And additionally, I, you can do lofts, I believe, and you can have different guide curves that are actually in 3D as well. So 3D sketching is a very powerful tool if you can understand your environment as well as understand what you're looking to do. I hope this helps you.